Captain on the bridge.
Alright, captains, we are back on the bridge, and today, yes, we got some things to go over from the Star Trek Online X feed, so on screen. Yes, captains, before we get into this video, do us a huge favor and hit that like button, as it really does help our videos get out in the YouTube algorithms to possibly seek out new captains to join us here on the bridge. But of course, if you're also new here, consider subscribing to our YouTube bridge, where we're always on the lookout for like-minded captains where we can share our love, our passion for Star Trek Online, but also things Star Trek. Now that said, here we go. Captains, we got a blog to go over and a 10 forward sort of recap to go over. So what we're going to do, drop the two ECs on both, and then at the end give our conclusion. So first up, save 25% on keys and grab the returning key ring bundle on PC for the next 50 hours. I'm not gonna lie, captains, I've been really looking at the Stowe feed here just because I am on the lookout for the returning legendary 10th anniversary bundle to come back to the console bridge, because I've mentioned this before. We are ready. We are ready to hit that button to purchase that bundle, and oh glory days, but we'll just have to wait for that. But anyways, so this was actually on the 29th, so this was as of yesterday. So when we go, I believe as of the release of this video, it's less than 24 hours, but you still have time to take advantage of this. So let's go over this quickly. So save 25% on keys and keyring bundle, of course, in the next 50 hours. The temporal anomalies have opened a hole to an alternate universe, one with a fantastic sale, captains, but this flash sale will only be available for a limited time, from September 29th to October 1st. Hurry and grab yourself some items at one of our largest discounts ever before the portal shuts and it's all lost. This is not one of the largest discounts ever. 35, 40, heck, make it 50. See how much money you make, just saying. Of course, it's 25%. Keyring bundle, get your hands on a special bundle of 20 master keys and an ultimate tech upgrade. Don't wait, the flash sale anomaly can be gone before you know it. So there is that. Now, also what had happened there, we did miss this cryptic stream that was supposed to be on Tuesday, but we said in our last update video that it was kind of sad that we weren't going to do it, but lo and behold, they did actually show it off. But what we're going to do is go over to Stowe Reddit, and of course, this is courtesy of the Sajukar. So huge props to you, as always, giving us an overcap. There's a lot of things actually here that they dropped, so we're going to go over it as quickly as we can, of course, dropping our ECs and thoughts on them, because there was some goodies here, and I do have a video that a clip, I should say, that I wanted to show, because this again speaks to what I've always been saying about the passion about some of our devs have for Star Trek Online. So, but we'll go over this because that was the only thing that was also on the X feed there. So 1014, of course, was delayed because Kale's power outages. So that was the thing we knew. So Avenger and Fortescue were chosen because they had a pedigree. Legendary ships are either ships featured as a hero ship or featured a lot prominently in an episode or movie. Well, we know that the Inquiry is part of the Avenger, so sure, they threw that in there. And a lot had to do with variants that could bundle together. Avenger, being part of the Inquiry family, fit both those, as did the Fortescue. Well, the Fortescue, is the flagship of Stowe. And it does say something here later that we'll go over, but this should have been a lot sooner. Just saying. Selection started with the Fortescue because they hadn't done a legendary version of it, and it was important to Thomas they remaster it and do a legendary version. Cryptic were aware. People here, right here, were a little disappointed. Are you kidding me? The year of the Klingon, and you're not gonna give us the flagship of the Klingons? Bruh. Like, bruh. You know what I mean? Bruh. That there hadn't been a legendary Fortescue yet. It wasn't included, of course, in that legendary Klingon bundle. They threw 2 Federation ships in there. Didn't make sense at all. Just to me, it didn't. After picking the Fortescue, Cryptic thought about what would pair well with it, and the recently seen new Inquiry in Picard Season 3, well, it was seen, but we didn't really see. You know what I mean? There was no clear sort of image of the Inquiry with the new deflector. But it was actually confirmed in Dave Blass's Twitter accounts, and that is why we made that video a couple months ago saying, yeah, can we has this please? And wow. But that's why we're going to show that clip later, because it'll explain it here in a bit. As well as that the Prodigy and Avenger came into stow in the same relative ballpark, and the ship's lore was all about the Federation / Klingon War, made it a thematic alignment. Of course, now we're all buddies. Jonathan has wanted to do a big beefy Klingon ship for a while, and the Arbiter was the first thing he ever got on the Zen store, so he was an attachment to it and wanted to do a legendary Bort, of course, a Bort. Talks about how important energy weapon cycle is to stow, great trait, and that he had a model of a Negvar as a kid. He'll pass on the questions. Here's something that we mentioned here on the review of that bundle. Kale has passed on the questions of why there are the number of tokens there are in the bundle. He imagines it's deliberate. I don't get it. You guys gave us the ability to go T6X2. Gave us 2 legendary ships, 3 ships with that bundle, technically. The least they could have done was given us 6 of those T6X tokens so that we can upgrade both the Inquiry and Bort. Just saying. Just sometimes it's just such a slam dunk. But yeah, it's been passed on. Hopefully that is something that we get given to us as sort of a, hey, you know what, here's a bone, have 3 more, go ahead, have your day. Kale highlights a question for no reason. He says about the Prodigy Dauntless is coming to stow anytime soon, or if the Prodigy Dauntless. Well, we know it's coming. We got the Protostar, that's the hero ship of Prodigy. There's no doubt that Dauntless will be coming to stow. Not really a big fan of it, not gonna lie. The look of it was just not, it did not really sit pretty with us, to be honest. But I'd actually prefer the old Dauntless. It just looks like a mushroom from Super Mario Brothers. Just saying. Thomas says that there is a remaster of the Exitor variant of the Connie in progress. That is interesting. So the Exitor, of course, is that tier 2 version in the C store. Actually, here we'll go quickly to the stow bridge because we are there. And this also gives us a chance to show off the awesome Inquiry model itself. Yes, I do love this ship, I'm not gonna lie. I've always loved it, especially when Riker was in it in command, and of course he said these famous lines.
Weapons hot, deflectors to full.
That just something for me, so I'm just saying. So the tier 2 is actually this ship here. This I actually liked. It is a really good model, and it actually looked really good. I still think it still holds up, and a remaster of this is pretty cool, I think. And a lot of people actually have an attachment to it because this actually made sense in my head that this was the sort of refit to the refit itself. So that's cool that it's getting a actual remaster. And let's see if they add another Connie variant. Geez, enter one Connie into stow and everyone just goes crazy. But anyways, we'll go back to that in a bit there. So we'll go back here, put this up on screen again. So that's pretty cool. When Thomas remastered the UI for the lore, for of course Legacy of Ramos, he chose the color scheme he chose because that was a scheme made by Mike Okada for the perpetual version of stow. I thought this is cool. Overload linked quad cannons treat beam overload like fire at will. So you can slap these cannons on a beam overload build and still get mileage out of them. Yeah, will do. Jonathan intends for this weapon trait to eventually be available elsewhere, be it an engineer-able mod or something else. All the old Avenger Bort consoles have had their restrictions removed. This is pretty cool. Now, of course, the flagship console on the Bort, you can definitely just go ahead and just put that on any actual ship. So it's pretty cool. That's a great thing for especially those who already have these ships You can just put it on an alt and the performance instantly is improved. And that's what we were shouting when we got, or before we got the legendary Kira for the torpedo console on that to be unlocked, and that thing just follows us everywhere because we do love that console. Jonathan mentioned he'll probably re-add the BORT BOP console restriction since that didn't really work on ships outside the BORT. So both he and Thomas do mention they could recreate another version of the power so that other ships cause the BOP to warp in instead. It is. Jonathan says he made some little progress on figuring out where in the game to add little things like narrow angle phaser beam arrays or the new overlay link quads. When they get added, they won't be limited to just phaser and will come in all the weapon types. That is good news, especially to those who don't like phasers, because you might just like disruptors, and that's okay. Jonathan is interested in adding additional mods to advanced consoles, but fears he might troll some people in the process who have already re-engineered them by doing so. That was, I feel that we got lucky. We are actually gonna go back to the video that we streamed that night, both nights that we got these ISO mags, and just kind of see how much we spent. I feel like I kind of got a little lucky because some captains said they spent actually more than what I did to do 7 of these, and that's all I intend to do. And I'm not doing any other weapon types because, well, phaser is my flavor. So, but yeah, I don't see what other type of actual mods I can put in there. That, I don't know. We'll have to see, but I see what he means by trolling. And that didn't even move anything in terms of the DIL-X. That didn't move. If anything, it just went up even more, which is, of course, who knows what that means. But Cryptic is taking a closer look at Cloaks and Stowe, who's good at it and why, and interested in tweaking some of the older content. Jonathan has an idea to help Klingon and Romulan Cloaks. Never been a huge fan of Cloak in terms of my play style. I may just use it in the opening, but then that's about it. Now, having said that, good friend Nick of ours, who also supports us in this channel, had us build out the Terran Eagle, and that thing performed like a beast, and it had cloaking on the spam bar, so I was cloaking in and out, but of course that was paired with Assault Formation Theta, and of course one of my favorite traits, so that helped there. Still not my playstyle, but that was in min-max mode, so getting the most performance as you can with the build. So, but if we're talking about playing for immersion, I don't, even when I'm on a Klingon or a Romulan, I don't use my cloak outside of maybe the beginning. That's about it. But let's see what they do. Let's see what they do. So there is that. So based on something someone asked in chat, Jonathan's wondering if there is any way to expose the tags of certain powers so players have greater clarity on what constitutes things like an actual cloak power. Kale adds it would make it easier for them descriptions to say affects anything with X tag. The old good sounds like spaghetti code talk right there. Jonathan finds a compelling argument that the scimitar, legendary scimitar, should have enhanced battle cloak. Yes. If we're talking about thematic, then yes, that should apply to this, right? That should definitely apply to this because it was seen on screen, 100%. Not against adding it, but afraid of opening the can of worms of having to go back through years of ships and having to adjust who gets what cloak on a ton of ships. The scimitar, the bop. Really, that's it. I don't remember any other Klingon ship firing through cloak, or Romulan ship firing through cloak for that matter. So if there is, let me know in comments below, but that is 2 ships that you would only have to change, and it would be canon. Just look at the ships that have done it on screen. There you go. That's your guide, period, point blank. John has been considering a new singularity power that buffs synergies with cloaks, as people have been asking for singularity power revamp. Yeah, I really don't use that. Feels like he will look into tailor issues on console in regards to backgrounds being in front of player character ships. There has been an internal work on buff powers. The main obstacle is adding more buff powers. It is that the buff manual system is clunky nonsense that dramatically pushes up dev time. Jonathan looks at threads on forum social media sites about what power people want to add auto-execute on console. Just make everything auto-execute. If you can put on a spam bar on PC and stow keybinds, put it on auto-execute and have us make that choice. Now there's like, sometimes there's 3 different choices. For example, like the health, like let's say hazard emitters. You can set it to activate whenever possible, activate when hull is below 50%, or et cetera, et cetera. So those ones, just give us those options. I think it's just going to be great. Unlikely they will do something like a token that allows you to make non-full spec ships into full spec ships. Jonathan isn't admits he doesn't even know enough to provide an answer for that, and that he would have to talk to the software team, which shows how big a thing that would be. Well, for like tier 5 ships, I don't mind them still being in stow because they're still capable. They don't have all, of course, the fancy availability of the specialty powers, specialization stuff, but still, they can still do good enough for your basic and, of course, entry-level stow player. Of course, at the end game, when stow players get to that point of their career, they can, of course, get the upgraded 6, but tier 5s are fine. I can see why they would want that to happen because, well, it's my favorite ship. I've been in that ship for years. I want to upgrade this ship to the max and be able to have a specialization, which I get, but you also have the tier 6 version. So you can easily just get that. But I get why that question, or could get why that question could be asked. So Jonathan asked players how they feel about the recent melee weapon rework. He had to make older melee weapons behave more like newer melee weapons, in that you can charge, sprint towards enemies for a longer distance. Asked people to post on forum social media their experiences. Jonathan says he may not have shipped to live. He's not sure due to how patch notes are sometimes truncated. So melee has always felt clunky. I get excited when we get a new weapon sometimes and it looks really cool, but that's just pretty much it, that it looks pretty cool. Melee and stow, it's just awkward. And I get it, it's an MMO type. Yeah, I've seen melee in other games and it's kind of pretty similar. I don't know how you can make it like, let's say, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, the other game that I played. I don't think they'll ever be able to make it into that type of fluidic and really responsive system. But it would be nice if they can, but it's just not really feasible. But again, melee weapons are cool because they look cool. When asked about making the character selection screen static, Kale notes that they've pretty much given up all hope on messing with the character selection screen. Wow. That tells you a lot there. Okay, so we're gonna go over this via this, because I loved how Thomas talked about this. So I'm just gonna play this clip from this 10 forward here, and let's just see how it explained to us.
Go for it. Anyway, Thomas, tell us a little bit about the design of this ship. This is the Inquiry Refit, or Inquiry Gamma, or the new version of the Inquiry that appeared in Season 3 of Picard.
Yeah, we're calling it the Inquiry Gamma. It appeared in Season 3 of Picard. What's actually really cool about this ship, and it might be the only ship like this in Star Trek Online, is that when they made the Inquiry, or when they were doing Picard Season 2, they wanted to put the Inquiry in Season 2, but it was a different effects house that then did the effects for Season 1. And so when I sent them a lot of STO original ships, but they also asked for some canon ships, for the Fleet Museum. So there's some STO models they use for the Fleet Museum, the Pioneer, and then some canon ships.
Some STO models.
But they also used our Inquiry model. So like the Inquiry model in Season 2 Picard.
Now that's cool, and you can tell how happy Thomas is about that.
Was actually the Inquiry model that we built based on Season 1 ship. So when they made, and this version we're calling Inquiry Gamma is slightly different in a few places. They removed the big windows on the side. They're still there as a structural element. They're not lit up. They added an actual deflector dish.
Yes.
Which is a pretty big difference.
Because the previous one had like a grate or something there, right?
Grill.
Yeah, it was like a baleen whale almost. And they
First time I heard
added
about
some
that.
more details, and I think they changed proportions. The hull is a little bit smaller. But what's cool about it is they did all that to our model, and they
So
and
cool.
they kept the kind of the UV layout that we use. They kept the materials. They changed there's a new material that's a little bit
Turning
brighter.
the cell phone off while you're streaming.
And so when we got this from them, it was like, oh, we can just put this in the game. So like the model of the Inquiry Gamma variant is actually the one that was used on the show. It wasn't like, you know, we had to rebuild it or change it even, you know, like we just put it in the game, which is
That's
pretty cool.
kind of amazing.
That is definitely amazing how this is literally canon. So no interpretation, no, it's just direct. And it speaks to how tied to the hip Stowe and Star Trek is. And even though I say this a lot, Star Trek Online is not perfect, but man, to be tied to the source material is just absolutely awesome. And yes, this ship, again, I do love this ship. When I got it, and I kept saying at every angle, minus where you can see the deflector, it's an awesome looking ship. I actually do like the design. And now as a deflector, it really makes it, for me, and that's just maybe because I'm a TNG baby, but it just makes it more, I don't know, imposing almost, and even just like a slimmer, sleeker looking ship to me. And I just thought I'd share that because I just wanted the joy I heard in Thomas's voice and Kale's. That was pretty cool there. So that's that little bit here that they were talking about here. So that's why I wanted to kind of play that, because it was, again, something that he talked about, and just it was easier for him to show and say. So there is that. So remastered Inquiry doesn't replace the skin of the Inquiry. The player can call it as power as it was meant to invoke a scene from Picard 1, which used the old look. Thomas says, while the new look could be considered a retcon in the show, it can also be considered a new variant. Yep, and he doesn't want to take anything away from the people who might want or / use it. Which is, yes, there is still people who want to use the whale bailing, deflector, old deflector, sure. The original version of the ship was designed by John Eaves as a design for the original version of Stowe by Perpetual that was later dusted off by John for Picard Season 1. Cryptic alerted to NCC being backwards on Inquiry nacelle. Didn't even notice, but there you go. So I thought I'd just show that off there. Thomas tries to be strategic when making ships / redoing ship art. Legendary variants give an easy way to remaster old ships, and that's why we could tell what ships are gonna be legendarized. Now, that doesn't mean the Exitor is going to be legendarized, because it's already legendarized. It's part of the Connie family, and we already have a legendary version. Whether they decide to release another ship of that, who knows? And it's not going to be very that much far off in terms of how it looks, but who knows? They might, because, you know, money. But they have to scope a new variant a little light so they can spend a bulk of the time remastering the old ship if it needs it. While the Avenger isn't a canon, Thomas considers it very important to Stowe's history. I'm not a huge fan of the Avenger skin. I know a lot of people loved it, and I feel that for me, it's not even just about the performance. I know it's a great performing ship. I just didn't like the look of it. And for me, that's where the enjoyment I get from Stowe, is how one ship looks. And I need to be able to like it to enjoy it, regardless of how it performs. So that's just me. It was the first fed Battlecruiser. It was an early Tier 5 ship in the Zen store, and part of helping set the visual design of ships in Stowe going forward. So it was important to Thomas bring it to line to modern Stowe visual quality and remasters like the Odyssey. Odyssey and Avenger are from the same era of Stowe, setting the visual design for Stowe ships. The Audi remaster gave Thomas a blueprint on how to remaster the Avenger / other ships from that era of the game to make them feel cohesive. Mauricio remastered both the Borderskew and the Avenger. Mauricio brought a lot of surface features from the Audi revamp and brought them into the Avenger revamp. When making ships, Cryptic doesn't want them to feel like video game assets. The artist think about what he can add to make them feel like it was the ILM workshop, as if they were made for one of the shows / movies. I like that. way of thinking. Brian compliments the new Avenger and says Thomas and crew spent a lot of time really thinking Federation future and the design theory of it all. So last little part here. So for the legendary border skew, Cryptic decided to take Kronos 1 variant they did for the Katinga class with all delivery that made it stand out as basically being a Klingon Air Force 1. I like that, and apply it here like they did for the T6 Vodevol. Thomas, like the idea of the style switching ships to whatever ship the Klingon Chancellor is currently using, like how every version of Air Force 1 uses the same paint scheme. Another reason to do this was because it gave them time to remaster the original board skew. Had they done completely new skin for the Legendary, they wouldn't have had time to remaster the original. It was important to Thomas that they remaster the board skew given its place as the Klingon flagship since its introduction back in 2012. And again though, I get that, but Year of the Klingon flagship, you left it out. You left it out. Just saying. Just saying. Along with the neck bar too. That's a whole nother can of worms. The filigree used on the border skew remaster is the same used on all other Kronos 1 variants. Thomas says that they likely won't do a Kronos 1 variant for the Brel. Comes with a new material based on the Vorcha and Vodevol with a slightly different green color palette that is based on the original Klingon Type 3 material that the border skew used previously. Jonathan comments on the people wondering why it wasn't a jug or something similar, and he says they try not to change the class. So it's Battlecruiser because the old one was a Battlecruiser. It was a very cannon-friendly layout, I should say. But the seating stats make it a good torpedo boat, so it can do both. No hangar on the ship because Jonathan wasn't aware there was a lot of player feedback regarding wanting a hangar on the ship. Doesn't mean they didn't want it, it's a flagship. Mind you, it has a console that has a bop on it, so I don't know. It'd be nice if it was, but rapid fire linked disruptor cannons use cannon rapid fire cooldown reduction when getting kills. I like that. Bort got 4 device slots because one of the older versions had it, and it felt like a little bit of a sugar to give the ship. So there is that. Again, huge shout out to the Sejukar for that recap there. Always very insightful. Always just an easy kind of thing to go over there, and always appreciated, definitely. So we're gonna go back here to the Stowbridge quickly because I'm going to just oogle a little bit more on this because it is such a great model ship. I do enjoy it. There is somewhat something I'll kind of mention that reminds me of the Sovereign class. So the saucer going into the secondary hull here on the first variation of the Sovereign kind of had just this kind of a step down. The refit and the kind of the remaster we got from the Legendary version had like lines going into the body. I wish they kind of did that here. It doesn't change how I feel about the ship, but I think it just would have flowed better. And Captain, as you can see, I'm using the other nacelles, and the reason for that is I feel like it gives this ship a sort of longer profile. The other, and this is canon anyway still, so it's just another variant. The other nacelles, and yes, I just actually took a selfie there because I like the top views of ships like that. The other variant, of course, both variants were seen in Star Trek Picard, and I like these, and this is why I like these, and this is why I use them. So definitely had a lot of fun in this. This ship's performance really surprised me. Having said that, why wouldn't a ship that has, of course, now been T6X2, and yes, this is the first ship I T6X2'd because of, well, it was in the bundle. I can't be that surprised in it because it did really good. So this is the build that we're gonna just kind of share, of course, here on the channel, here on the YouTube bridge. So look out for that because it was really fun and surprising. But again, it shouldn't be surprising because you added more consoles and traits for it to use. But I feel that for me, especially for me, it's gonna be able to open up more of those hybrid builds that I like using, like a ship that have both, let's say, beam and torpedo skills. Because of the additional console and trait that you have, you can almost kind of mix up the best of the cannon, the best of the torpedo, the best of the beam traits, and that just, for me, sounds like a lot of fun, which of course we love to have a lot of fun. But Anyways, Caps, that is the video. We just thought we would go over that because it was some good information, and it was just always to kind of, again, just kind of fun to talk about here on the bridge. So do us a huge favor, hit that like button. Also, comment below. Let us know what you think of the inquiry of the board. Let us know if you got this bundle and if you're going to be getting it in the future. And of course, subscribe here to our YouTube bridge. And we will leave it on this note.
Live long and prosper.